Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I want to show you Maiden's Quest, designed by Ken Shannon. This is a game that's going to be available from the WizKids booth at Gen Con, and it is a small, like, hold-in-your-hand card game about being a princess who is fed up with being locked in a tower, and so she's decided to escape. This game has a lot of interesting design features that I'm really curious about, and I think you guys might enjoy as well. Since your goal in Maiden's Quest is to escape the tower, what you're going to be doing is constructing a deck of cards that contain some cards that are helpful to you, and then some cards that aren't. So enemies, and then ultimately your captor, who are trying to keep you in the castle. So you want to get your cards upgraded that are good for you, and get your enemies defeated so you can leave. So there's two conditions under which you can actually leave the tower that you're trapped in. The first is to defeat your captor, so you choose a big boss at the beginning of each game, and that's the person that you're going for. Your other option is to find an exit door, which is something that can happen if you are up and downgrading your cards very carefully, which is something I'm going to show you how to do. So there's actually multiple ways to win, and a lot of it is paying attention to what kind of cards you have and what you think you can pull off as you go through the game. So first we can choose a princess. There are 8 princesses to choose from, and as you can see, each of them looks a little bit different, and I'm just gonna say I appreciate that none of the art is overly sexy. They look like princesses who really could escape a tower and go running around. The other thing that's interesting is that each of these princesses has different symbols in the top left corner of their card, something that'll mean something to you more as you play the game. It also tells you what kind of cards you might be able to upgrade in your hand depending on when you encounter the princesses and what you have in your deck at that time. These little flip signs also mean that you can flip over to see what their special abilities are. So for example, Acolyte Dawn of Aelios is patient, so that means that if she shows up in your fan, which is the cards that you fan out to do combat, and we'll see that shortly, you can increase your foresight size by 2 for each add or gone card in the foresight. And that's also something that'll make sense. But essentially an add is an enemy that shows up in your fan when you're looking for symbols, so they just muck up the works in there. A gone card is a card that you've downgraded so much that it's essentially worthless. So each of the princesses will have some helpful symbols, a special ability. I recommend that you just pick the one that you want to play for the first few games because it's fun. So I want to be Gwendolyn because she just looks cool. I'm a redhead, she's a redhead, we're gonna roll with that. So our friend Gwendolyn is gonna give us a little bit of information about what goes into her deck. So on the back of the card, we not only have her special ability, but we actually have some information about her starting health, her heirloom, which is a special item that always goes into her deck, random items that she gets to carry throughout the game, and a dress of her choice. So when we're building the helpful parts of our deck, we're guided by the back of Gwendolyn's card. So let's have a look at what goes in here. So the first thing Gwendolyn's gonna get is these 2 cards that say Untapped Rage on them. The fact they have a heart on them is telling you that these are her health cards, which is why they're listed under starting health. So in the game, these cards are gonna start with this being what is seen when you fan cards out in your deck. But if you get to upgrade the card, then you're going to be able to upgrade it so you can have a heart and a symbol, which is pretty cool. Or if things aren't going well and you're forced to downgrade the card, which means just flip it like this, she will start out with Blood Rage. So the shoe is the sign that you're on the last stage of the card. So if you see a glass slipper, you know that your card is about to be just done. So you have Blood Rage, which she says, I'm fine. And, you know, she still has a heart and a sword. Or if things are going really bad for you, you can be cornered. It forces you to take damage when you pull the card, but you also are going to have some symbols. So in some ways, because she has Untapped Rage, she gets a little bit stronger from turn to turn as she gets injured. It can be dangerous in the end because these are damage symbols. But she keeps health for a little bit, and in some senses, this damaged card is worth more than the original state card. So if you can upgrade, that's great. But if you get hurt, this is like a card that you'd want to downgrade because she still has some health and she gets a symbol when you are using the card in combat. To fill out her starting health, it also says 6 random. So I just pulled 6 random cards from the health deck, and they're all gonna look a little bit different. So tough upgrades to having a bunch of health, downgrades to still having a little bit of health, but then it eventually breaks. So this broken heart, when you end up with a grayed out card, it basically means that the card is dead. So, you know, you can have cards that become useless throughout the game. This one, raw potential, doesn't give you anything, but if you upgrade it, you end up with a unicorn. That's basically like a wild sign. You can use it in a lot of different situations in the game. But if you downgrade it, it's just broken already. We got another tough. Pious doesn't offer much unless you upgrade it, in which case you get a sun symbol. If you downgrade it, you have a little bit of time, and you get hope when the card is totally burned out. So at least you get some kind of symbol even when it's no longer functional. So as you can see, some cards have longer lives than others. Resolve has some shields on it, which protects you from damage, but once it's broken, it's broken. And then Cunning, you get these little fox symbols, which is quite helpful, but again, once it's broken, you're done with that card. So these are her health cards, and when you put them in the deck, you're gonna make sure that the blue side is the side that's to the left, because when you fan cards out, as you're gonna see, you fan them out like this. So this is the side that you're dealing with in any game. So when you upgrade it, you rotate. So this is the side that's showing, but we don't have any upgraded cards yet. Next, we're gonna add in some item cards. So the first is Gwendolyn's heirloom, which is a long sword. So you find the card that says long sword on it and make sure that it goes into Gwendolyn's deck. All item cards are gonna have this lighter, kind of deeper blue. So you have this kind of a brighter blue on the health cards. All the item cards will have this slightly different blue on them, but they're really distinguished by the heart versus not having a heart. These are symbols that we'll be using in combat shortly. And just like health cards, you can upgrade, you can downgrade, and you can break item cards in the game. So she'll have a longsword. We'll put it this way to put it in the right orientation for the start of the game. And then she's also gonna get 14 random items. Some of them are other princesses' heirlooms when you're playing with other princesses, but we're not, so they can just be in the random items. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There's a whole deck of them, but I just pulled these off to make life easy. So these will go on the deck. And then we finally, our last component for her half of the deck is a dress of our choice. So let's have a look at the dresses and figure out what we're going to wear for our escape. So here are the dresses that we can choose from. And the thing that's kind of fun about dresses is they all have little special symbols or powers that will help us when we pull them out of our deck in combat. So the ballroom dress is a good choice because it has 2 unicorns on it for starters, because it just makes it any 2 symbols. We can go for the sundress. We can go for the royal gown, which lets you upgrade a card every single time you run into it. These are some good choices. I think that I would like the evening attire, because this is a ridiculous dress. I mean, they're all ridiculous dresses to try to escape a castle in, except for the R-word attire, which is kind of fun. But let's try to run away in an evening dress, because cocktail dresses are easier to run in, right? I find this whole thing hilarious, that these are like very powerful dresses that help you out. So we're gonna go ahead and grab this one and put it in our deck. You can pick any dress you want. I recommend experimenting with different ones, just like in real life. And then the princess herself will go into our deck, and that is like the good half of our deck. These are the parts that are gonna help us in our escape from the castle. So Gwendolyn went ransacking her room in the tower, and this is all the stuff that she grabbed, and it's the stuff that we're gonna use as we try to escape. So now it's time to build up a deck based on who we're trying to run away from. So there are a few different villains in Maiden's Quest. The level 4 ones are always often the hardest, so Firemouth is really tough. You have all these different options. By the way, Turda is probably the most hilarious name for a bad guy ever. Love it. Death is very difficult to defeat. But then you kind of go down a little bit and you have, like Mr. Marrow is like level 3, but then you get Mrs. Claus, who's level 2. And we're gonna build for Jellyasta Jones, who is also level 2. So she's like a good starter villain to get going with, because she's not that difficult to deal with. and the game will still present challenges. So this is a good villain to begin with. Don't bite off more than you can chew for your first game. So Jelly Asta Jones has a special ability on the back of her card. So it says if a dress is ever in your fan when encountering her, you automatically lose the encounter. So we don't want to draw our dress when we're fighting her, sadly. But she also tells us what is going to go in our enemy deck. So the first thing is obstacles. She's going to put up 11 different obstacles, and this is going to tell us what level each of those sets of obstacles is going to be. So we need 1 obstacle that's level 0, 5 that are level 1, 3 that are level 2, and 2 that are level 3, and there won't be any level 4 ones in this particular deck. There are 2 treasures and 2 saviors, which we're also going to talk about momentarily. So obstacles are these white cards. And as you can see, they have numbers in the top corner. So a butler would be a level 4. I just got mine fanned out so that we can just grab, oh, there's a couple of zeros in there. Let's reorganize that. Okay, so basically I'm just gonna kind of randomly pull a 0 out. You can't totally hide the cards from yourself, so you just do the best you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those are our level 1 obstacles. We'll pull out 3 level 2 obstacles. So let's just say, let's grab that one. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, a forlorn lover. Yikes. And then no level 4s. We're also gonna get to put in 2 treasures. So these are the treasure cards. They start gray and face down until you can unlock them, and then there's usually something rather exciting behind there. So let's kind of see what we got. So treasure, we'll hopefully find something good later. The other thing that's interesting is they're epic treasures in the game. So like if you pull a treasure card that has like a requirement on it, what that means is that you don't put it in your treasure deck until you've met the requirement. So for this treasure, you need to defeat 9 different captors. We're not even having this one in the game to draw right now, but you can get more advanced treasures the more you play the game, which I think is a really cool thing. We're also going to grab 2 savior cards. So saviors are these cards that are green on one side and they are kind of orange on the other side. These represent people who've come into the tower to try to bail you out, but they can be helpful or hurtful. One thing that's good about them is that they can be used to upgrade, downgrade, or take damage on cards. So you can actually just sort of abuse your savior to protect other cards. They offer you symbols on one side. On the other, they give you more symbols, but they also force you to downgrade cards potentially, which is not fun. So, you know, they are a mixed bag, but generally pretty helpful. So let's just shuffle up and grab 2 of them. All right, so the unicorn is gonna help because unicorns are awesome. And we're also gonna get Blast Mage Megan. Thank you, Blast Mage Megan. We appreciate your assistance. So here's our deck, and of course, Jelly Asta Jones herself will go in. So then, that means that we have 2 decks. One's all of our good stuff. This one is all of our challenges, and then a couple of saviors and treasures. And then we're gonna shuffle them all together to make one big deck. All right, so we shuffled everything together. There's one more thing we're gonna add to the bottom of our deck before we start to play, and that's these rest cards. So as we go through a game, we're going to level up. So we start at level 1, but then when we hit this card at the bottom of our deck, we will bump it to level 2, 2A, and then 2B. Then we'll become 3A, B, and C, and then finally level 4. So just so you know, this says last level. That does not mean that once you hit this card, the game is over. What it means is that you can't go any higher than this because the levels are something that helps you determine what encounters you actually have to face. So we're in the Jelly Asta Jones deck, which means that we're not really gonna face anyone higher than a 3. And so, you know, once we hit level 3, all bets will be off with our enemies. And I'll be showing you how that works as we go. But the level of difficulty or like alert that your enemies are on is going to increase as the game goes. The other thing is that once you hit the rest card, you immediately stop whatever you're doing, shuffle everything else in your deck except for this card, and start again with this on the bottom. So it lets you reshuffle, reset, and kind of get ready for a new round. So now let's play just a little bit to see how this goes. So we don't have any sort of encounter on the top, so this card's just gonna go to the back of the deck. But whoop, okay, so here it is. Here's our first encounter. Here's a thief. So now that we have run into this thief, we have a choice. We can either decide to fight him, or we can downgrade a card. So the failure condition of this is that we will take a damage and have to downgrade a card. But you know what? I'm feeling bold. It says any 5 of swords or cunning. So let's see how to do some combat. So the way that you would do combat is you fan out some cards. Uh-oh, it's not looking too hot for me here. So you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. And then you look at the symbols on those cards to see if you got what you needed. So in this case, so far, I've not gotten what I need. The other thing you're allowed to do, by the way, is kind of know what is coming up next. And that is considered looking down the hall. Because, I mean, you know, you're not gonna like be in all darkness and like have no idea what's coming up next if you're running down the hallway in like a castle keep. But I already know there's nothing over here that's gonna help me. So if I thought there was something more helpful on the next card, I could use this diamond to distract one of the cards that's in this fan and send it to the back of the deck. However, that did not work out for me because there's nothing that I want back here anyway. I just drew a bunch of health. So that sucked, but it's not abnormal to lose your first few combats. It's not really a big deal, it's okay. So I'm gonna take 1 damage and I'm gonna downgrade a card. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and take my damage on Untapped Rage, because now I'm gonna get a sword icon every time that comes up. So I think that that's actually not necessarily worst health to take. And then for downgrade, I can actually flip my savior card instead of flipping one of these, which is what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip the savior instead to take that downgrade for me. So that's what I've decided to do. I have lost this conflict, but I also resolved it. And then everything just goes to the back. So, oh no, we have another conflict, but I'm going to tell you about why this is special in a moment. So now we have come up against another conflict. However, I have some options here because see how he's level 2? I'm currently level 1. So if I wanted to, I could decide to just run away from him for free until I come up on him at the next level. Because if he is a level higher than me, I can just kind of slip away from him right now. He's not on red alert for me yet. I'm still kind of like just a silly little princess running through the halls. It's okay for now. However, I have a pretty sword heavy deck and I didn't get very many last time. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can get this mercenary because I like to live dangerously and that's what we're gonna do. So let's fan him out. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so this actually looks great. I can beat him, but just so you know, if I could not, I have the option of doing something called cellaring. So putting something in the cellar is basically just putting it at the bottom of your deck. But if you have an enemy that shows up in your fan for combat, and that enemy is at a higher level than you are at the given moment, you are allowed to just punt him to the back of the deck. However, I'm not gonna really bother with that because I don't need to. This says 4 swords and I have 1, 2, actually wait, hang on. I think I can get this. So I have 1 and 2, 3 for the unicorn. And I'm gonna be able to fan out some more and I can see down the hall that I'm gonna get another sword. So see this +2 right here? This +2 basically means that I can add a couple of extra cards to my fan. So I have a choice. I can either just cellar him and reveal 1 more card, or I could use this power to reveal 2 more cards. So let's just say that we cellared this, and then our fan goes back up to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ta-da! Now we have enough symbols to defeat this mercenary. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4 sword symbols because unicorns are wild. So he's been defeated, and when you defeat an enemy, you flip their card. He's now a disgraced merc, and he gives me an immediate power this time of upgrading one of my cards. So one of these 5 cards can get upgraded, and we get to look and choose which one it's going to be. So the evening attire can't be upgraded, so that's out. But we can also see, do we want to be tougher? We could go for that. Gwendolyn doesn't get an upgrade. But see, I think that maybe either manicured nails or, ooh. Okay, so I want to turn my stiletto heels into key stilettos because key symbols are very important later in the game if you want to exit. So I'm gonna go ahead and just make this into key stilettos. So I might have a key later. And then all of these cards are gonna go to the bottom, and then whoop, I have a skeleton. I have another conflict going on. All right, so now we have this skeleton. I'm not really sure what my cards are looking like right now. I had a bunch of symbols and I feel like we're kind of getting through the deck. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to pull the symbols to beat the skeleton. So why don't we think about what else we could do? So I can decide instead to run away. So if I don't wanna fight the skeleton, I'm just not feeling it, I can run. And the way that you run is you fan out 5 cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was actually probably a good choice because I'm not having any good symbols. But I did get a very useful symbol here. This is called a haste icon, and it looks like a little wing. And if you are deciding to run away, you can use this to run away without taking any damage at all. So one thing that's very interesting about this game is that you can choose to fight or you can run away for slightly lower consequences, and there are little icons that help you get away with impunity. So the main thing is that you need to decide whether you're gonna fight or run before you start an encounter. So I decided before I fanned out that I was gonna run away from the skeleton instead of fight it. So that's a really key thing. If this is just in your fan when you've decided to fight, it does something different. It would let me swap one of these cards for the other, but in this case, as you can see, it's kind of a bad fan. It wouldn't have helped. So now these can all go to the bottom of the pile, and I didn't get punished for anything because I had a haste that let me run away. I think we're close to the rest card, so I'm just gonna walk you through the rest. So not an encounter, not an encounter, not an encounter, not an encounter, not an encounter. Nope, no more encounters in this bit. So now we've hit the rest card. What happens when I hit this? I rotate it, so I know I'm gonna level up. Then I'm gonna shuffle all these cards. Make sure you keep their orientation, right, because of upgrades. So you shuffle everything. Give it a real good shuffle. These cards are pretty sturdy. And then you just put the cards back on top and you start all over again. So here's just one more detailed example of combat to show you how you can manipulate your deck in order to win. So we have this thief again, and I need any 5 between swords and cunning little foxes. So we're gonna fan out 5 cards. We're on level 2 now, so we can't get rid of this one yet. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. So I know that we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Also, sadly, this savior has shown up and we are going to, no, I think we're okay. We didn't encounter it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And we need a 5th, symbol in order to defeat this thief. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my holy book to make this one go to the back of the deck, because this diamond, it's basically you dropped a diamond to distract this guy and now he's gonna go away. So we got that taken care of. Then we came across this card. This is a gray card. This is a defeated enemy. When one comes up in your fan, you have the option of putting it in the back. You don't have to keep it. So we are going to dump this to the back, and then ta-da! Gwendolyn herself has popped up to give us another sword. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have all the symbols that we need to defeat the thief. And in this case, we get 2 more symbols on his card, which is super useful, an upgrade and a treasure, which means that I get to go through my deck, find a treasure, flip it over, and enjoy it for the rest of the game. So as you can see, it's not just fan out 5 cards. It's fan out 5 cards and then work every single advantage you have to see if you can get the situation to turn out the way that you want it to turn out. Just one more combat example so you can see how you can work the symbols on the cards together to get what you need. So let's say that I decided to fight this orc and I need any 4 of swords and cunning foxes. So I have 2 wilds, but otherwise things aren't looking good because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. I know there's an enemy down the hall, but there are ways that I can handle this because I can use these symbols and I can use them in any order I want. So I can fan out +2 and +1, and I can just go ahead and do that and put 3 more cards out, but I already know that this one's a waste. I don't necessarily want to do that. I want to make sure I'm going to win. So I can use Foresight. And what that means is that I can look ahead by 5 cards, and I can put any of the cards that are in the next 5 away, like behind my deck, and I can reorder any of the ones that are left. So let's collapse this for just a second and fan out 5 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I don't really want this one or this one. And I want to make sure that these come up. Would you look at that? So now I'm fanning out again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no, I need some more symbols. Let's do +1. Or I can just do +2. 1, 2. And now that I've used this to rearrange the cards that are coming up, and then this to display them, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 symbols that I can use to defeat the orc, upgrade a card, and keep going. So again, this game is very much about making the most of what you've got, using your stuff in the correct order, and then making sure that you choose upgrades that are going to let you keep making interesting combos on your way out of here. So one thing that's very interesting about Maiden's Quest is that it's got actually a bunch of different play modes that mix and match really nicely. So, I mean, I'm a solo player, and really this is fantastic. It's just a solo game to just kind of play when you want to play a game. But if there are other people who are playing it, you have an option. One option is that you can actually play co-op for a little while. So I can say, I don't know if I have a whole lot of cunning in my deck, like, would you be willing to help me with the conflict? And then you guys can actually fan out. I could do 2 cards from my deck and 3 cards from my friends, and we could look at those 5 and see if we can manipulate those to defeat the orc together, in which case we would share the rewards, or if we lost, we would share the consequences, and we can choose how to divvy that up. The other thing that's really interesting is that if this actually is what makes Maiden's Quest a cool con game, so if you're going to pick it up for the first time, a con might be the best spot, is that you can do what's called serendipity. So if you are out in the wild and you see someone else playing Maiden's Quest, which I would actually be delighted to see that at a coffee shop here, you can carry cards with you that are basically called gifts, and you can use them to have a sudden serendipitous fight alongside someone else. So there's several different interesting cards that you can carry with you in case you have a serendipitous moment, but the coolest one is the brooch, because it says, when assisting another during a serendipity, you can choose a card from your deck, maximum of 4, for each signature on the back, and place them on top of your deck. After the encounter, place this card in your deck as an extra discovered treasure. So what's kind of cool about this is that I've actually been collecting signatures from the last time I was at a con, so if I ever do have a serendipitous moment with someone, I'm actually going to be able to help them by going through my deck and rearranging 4 of my cards because I have some cool signatures on the back of this one to assist me. So there's also a social element to this game that is really cool and something that I'd like to see happen in more games. In reality, unless everyone in the world buys Maiden's Quest, which would be really awesome, if there's more than one person in the same household who's playing, if you have kids, if you have friends who game, those will be probably your most regular opportunities to try something like this. But at Dice Tower Con, when multiple people had this game, it was really fun to be able to walk over and say, hey, do you want to do a serendipity? And we could actually assist each other and play special cards to overpower ourselves for a couple of combat rounds. And it was just cool and fascinating, and a neat way to see a solo game turn into something that temporarily wasn't, but then could revert back to being solo. There aren't like long-term commitments that you get stuck in. So that's Maiden's Quest. It is not a perfect game, but it is a very enjoyable game, one that I've really kind of sunk into as my plays go by, and especially as I've learned how to manipulate the symbols more artfully on the cards. It's a game that repays regular play, and that repays actually trying to use the serendipity mode because you have cards that get more powerful as you do that. It's just a really neat concept, and I had never seen a game that worked quite this way before. I would like to see another that does. If you want to try something that has a cool theme, I like the idea of a princess trying to escape a tower, that has interesting gameplay elements and that repays repeated play because you get better as you go, I think Maiden's Quest is a great choice. It's inexpensive, it's portable, and it's a solid solo experience that promises so many more interesting things to come. Happy gaming.